Everything you just mentioned now all plays effective, but it always starts off with the wind. So it's cooling the water down, and the wind plays huge.
All this winter, what sort of winds am I going to get excited about?
First day on northeast, don't go fishing.
There you go, buddy. Hit it now!
This is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's Angler News podcast, and we are talking winds with Mr. Dave Irvin. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into it, we know that winds are extremely important when it comes to fishing, and it affects a lot. We know there's a lot of elements involved. Winds is one of the most important ones. And Dave, you had a conversation with me a while back where I was blown away, right, with what you told me. I don't know, there was so much that goes into it. I knew the basics, you knew the details, so that's why we got you on. Now, before we get on with the show, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I've been fishing most of my life. Yeah, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of bass fishing, but I rock and surf fished for 30-odd years, league. I fished league competitively. I fished in one of the top clubs in KwaZulu-Natal. I learned a huge amount from really top anglers. And I loved every minute of it. We virtually traveled the whole of KZN fishing all over the place, Transkei to Cozy to everywhere. So I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. That's the whole setup. Yeah.
Okay, so how essential was winds in your fishing? I mean, was it the first thing you looked at? Was it one of the last things you looked at when you were planning a competition weekend? Right? Were you looking at the time of year, the tides, the barometric pressure? Or was it the first thing, what wind are we fishing in?
The thing is, it all plays. So everything you just mentioned now all plays effective. But it always starts off with the wind, because the wind will tell you if the wind's blowing northeast, you know the barometer is actually dropping. Wind's blowing southwesterly, you know the barometer is picking up. If the wind is blowing southwest, and the barometer is picking up, you know that the water's cleaning up and it's warming up. If it's blowing northeast, you know that the water is going to get some color in it. Because of upwelling, and the water's going to cool down. So it all plays, So the first thing you need to do when you're fishing, competitively, and you've got a round coming up, is have a very good app that you can see what the winds are actually going to do, because and it can tell you what the barometer will be, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the wind plays huge.
All right. So tell me, why do anglers always talk about either the northeasterlies coming for a couple of days, or we're going to fish into the southwest or whatever it is?
Because we're on the coast. Okay, so basically on the coast, what happens is our predominant wind is effectively northeast. So so when the northwesterly blows, that holds off the northeast. The northeast is going to blow, but the northwesterly will hold that off. So that's what you call it. It's also known as a land breeze.
Okay,
so that plays as well. So we get all of it, but your predominant wind in terms of fishing is that northeasterly.
Yeah,
that's when the competitive fishing, we were always targeting non-heads.
Yeah,
big sand sharks, diamonds, sharks, whatever.
Yeah.
So the result is that easterly is what we were looking for. But then again, that wind can play in terms of everything, as well as picking the sea up if it blows too hard. Then the sea can get big.
So we're just purely talking north, right? Not northeasterlies.
You can get, if you have a big cold front come through, and then you have a screaming 40 knot southwest. Now what happens is, you must remember, our current runs from north to south, which is the Mozambique current.
Yes.
So if you get a big westerly blowing against that current, that just picks the sea up to giant size.
Okay.
That's why you get a big sea.
Now, you are mainly talking on our east coast, or is it the same on the west coast?
If you're in Cape Town, the southeasterly there does exactly what our northeasterly does.
Okay.
That's what they call it. And down there, they call it the Cape Doctor or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that does the same thing, but it's because of, if you take the shape of the land.
Yeah.
So what a northeasterly is doing here. So when you go around there, that's now a southeasterly is doing the same thing.
Okay. So let's go back to just focusing on the northeasterly. What is that going to do to our water? Is it going to make it cleaner, dirtier? Is it going to make it warmer, colder? Let's just hone in on that northeasterlies and tell us all that we need to know about a northeasterly wind.
Okay. So let's say, for example, we've just come off we had a west come through. It was a little frontal system or whatever it was. It swung to a southeast, and it's now starting to blow northeast. Okay. So that first day when it starts to blow, the first day on northeast, don't go fishing.
Why?
Okay, it is you're not going to catch any. You're going to have to buzz it. Put it that way. Because obviously you can get low pressure and high pressure that can change the norm. Okay, but if you look at the norm, 90% of the time, it'll go from a southwesterly to a southeast, and then swing to a northeast. So at that southeast, once it swings to the northeast, that's the highest barometer that you're going to get.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's not when fish are eating.
No.
They prefer, so they'll actually start eating when the barometer bottoms out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that first day of an east, that east has got to blow to get the conditions that we need to catch fish.
Right.
So the first day needs that first day. So to go and fish on that first day, not going to be, it's like fishing, you might as well be fishing in that southeast.
Yeah. Okay, so I get you. Right.
Yeah. So your second day of a northeast,
now
you start paying attention. You can go fish because so what you want is when it swings to a northeast, you want it to blow hard. You want it to blow hard because at the end of the day,
hard, like what?
20 knots, 25 knots, 40 knots, that's like as the sea.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to have it at, say, 15 to 25. It's going to do what northeasterly does.
Right.
And that is, so why we want the northeasterlies? I mean, that I think is the question you're really asking. Why do we want the northeasterlies? We want the northeasterlies because it effectively causes upwelling. Okay. So so that upwelling is it's literally the cooler oceanic water at the bottom, okay, and bringing it to the top, and that blows inshore. So what happens is it's cooling your water down as well as giving it some cover.
Okay.
So in other words, because of all that upwelling,
yes,
you're getting, and in reality, you're getting nutrients coming from the bottom, and that's what the fish, your bait fish start to feed on, and the bigger fish come in, because you've had all of these nutrients come from cool, high in everything the fish need, basically. And then so it's cooling the water down, and it's giving us a much better cover.
Right.
The problem we have on our coastline is that we have clean water. When you get into the Eastern Cape, their water's pretty much got colour all the time. So the result is it's easier to catch fish. Hence, most of the nationals are held down simply because they have better conditions. We fish a hell of a lot at night, and we fish at night. We catch a lot of fish at night because we have clean water.
Yes.
So when the northeasties blow, it's going to give some sort of colour, and then obviously it's where there's been upwelling, and then obviously there's certain spots depending on the way the coastline actually goes.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll find spots like, there's certain spots that are going to be very good for sandies. When that east is blowing second day, third day east is good. But then you get another problem. Is that I've seen this happen where the easterly blows for 6, 7, 8, 9 days. The result is it actually cools down so much that the water gets so cold that you end up getting too cold together.
Okay.
But it doesn't happen often. But the easterly can blow for a long time. And but generally speaking, it's 3, 4 days, 5 days, and then it'll west.
So Dave, fishing the summer months, northeasterly, what would we target?
Okay, so for me, my thing was as I said, socially, if I wasn't fishing trawlers, I'd be fishing for sand sharks. Now the sand sharks, you start to effectively target them in November. Okay, now you must remember November, December is full summer, so November is your spring.
Right.
Okay, so especially further up north, the sandies they can start operating. The Tugela area, the sandies are operating in November. So there again, we want the easterlies. So we want those easterlies from even before, because the easterlies is always good. Even in the winter, it's good, but it's really good from November. So November, December, Jan, Feb, that's all your big flatfish, your honeycombs, your big sandies, all that, right through to
majority of those non-head species.
The majority of the non-head species, and that includes all the sharks and. Except grey sharks. Grey sharks can be year-round, depending on.
No, sure.
Depending on. As I say, at the end of the day, you want northeasterlies. Northeasterlies are what bring those big fish.
Hypothetically, we are not the competitive angler with a weekend angler. Is this when we start looking more forward towards the southwesterlies? Or are we still looking for northeasterlies? Are there edibles coming through as a weekend angler with the northeasterlies?
Yeah, I speak certainly in the summer, definitely.
Are we looking for fish that mainly feed in more of the dirtier water? The brownish colored kind of water?
Well, you see, that's the thing with, so for example, a stumpy will feed on banks. Okay. He's not necessarily, he will also feed on around rocks, but he will feed on banks.
Yeah.
So again, he's more, if you're catching sand sharks, you can catch a stumpy in the same place. So that's the thing. But if you're reef fishing, so if you're fishing off rocks, if you go to a place like
Polito.
so there, as I say, you could, again, you must remember that the first day over west, okay, is very good because, again, you're coming off a low barometer.
Yeah.
Okay, the water's cooled down, and the first day over west is starting to cool the water. It's starting to warm the water, sorry. So when that water starts to warm up, you get you a lot of the edibles that will start to feed. I prefer first day west, okay, than a first day east. First day west, you absolutely annihilate the grey sharks. Okay. Because, again, the grey sharks, to me, and this is my opinion, the grey sharks feed on water temperature. So people will say, well, you need to, a lot of competitive anglers will actually say, you're going to catch grey sharks in the west. Well, I have absolutely annihilated them in the northeast. But it depends when that northeast brings that water temperature to that correct point, and they feed like it's out of control. Yeah. And the same thing happens on the west. So when the west blows through and it warms the water to where those, and generally quite quickly, I've actually watched the west come, and I was testing for a tournament, and we weren't getting any bite. This was actually at Salt Rock Pool. And I had a bait in, and I watched this west coming through. We knew it was coming. That's why we were testing just before it came through. And as it was coming, the wind literally hit us. Yeah, there were two of us fishing. We both went tight with crash.
As soon as the wind came through,
they almost come with the west. I mean, it's just
wow.
It happens like that. Not always, but that's what happens. And so when that west blows, the first day of a west can be very productive, even for sandy. Because at the end of the day, it hasn't changed the conditions yet. It hasn't warmed the water up yet. And it hasn't cleaned it up completely yet. That first day. By the second day, then your barometer is again that's climbing. It's
Let's round off the northeasterlies with the species we're going to get. We know what it does with the water. We know we had a lot of non-edible species. But on your edible side, apart from the stumpies,
bonefish.
Okay.
You should be catching bonefish.
Yeah.
Even...
Would you target anything on your rock species side, like your rocker, then those scratching species, bronze bream, that kind of thing?
Look, I find when we were fishing tournaments and we had to catch fish regardless of whatever the one was doing. 9 out of 10 times when the weather's terrible, it's normally a west. So we caught many, many rock species on a northeast.
Really?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Because those are, a lot of those fish, like your rock cod, they're resident fish. They're going to be on those reefs all the time. That's where they live.
Yeah.
So they're going to, if you throw in the right place, you're going to catch them. Where the wind's going to play more of a role is where it's a low or high barometer. So if the northeasterly's been blowing and that barometer's low, all fish are going to eat. That barometer, they've got a swim bladder. It's telling them that, it's time to eat because effectively they see at a low pressure as we got bad weather coming. So that's why they're going to eat. So all fish will eat on an easterly. But where it becomes difficult to catch edibles if you've got easterlies blowing at 500 miles an hour, and a big sea, and it's hard to fish those reefs.
Sure.
But they will eat in the easterly, absolutely. Will they eat in the southwesterly? Absolutely. Again, they live.
Going on to the southwesterly, tell us what we can expect with the southwesterlies. So what is the southwesterly going to do with the water conditions and the species that we're going to catch?
Well, the southwesterly does exactly what competitive anglers don't want to happen, and that is that ultimately what it does is it warms the water up and it cleans the water. So we battle to get color in our water in the first place.
Yeah.
So if we get a bit of color, that southwesterly will take that color away. It's gonna be. So what happens is, the days when your weekend angler will wake up and say, "Oh, what a beautiful day! The sun is shining, a bright blue sky. Let's go fishing." That is the worst day in the world to fish because that is a day where the southeasterly will be blowing. It would have just started to blow, or it might be a light southwesterly, swinging to a southeasterly. Yeah. Just knowing that's if you've got sunshine, bright blue skies, that's fishing. Okay. And if you just, even weekend anglers, they will tell you, I've been fishing on these beautiful days and I've never caught anything. I go fishing and it's raining and it's not so clever, and they catch fish. Right. It's because the fish don't care what it is outside. It's about what that barometer is doing, and and effectively what the sea conditions are. So what happens, think about it, when you've got those bright blue skies, you've got a flat sea, because that's another thing the southwesterly does. It flattens the sea.
Yes.
Okay. So it flattens the sea, it takes any color away, and it makes it warm. All the things that the fish that we targeting don't want.
Well, if you're going out to enjoy the day at the beach, that's perfect. But if you're taking a rod, horrific.
Yeah. And your best bet then would be to go fish for reef fish and throw one on his head. Throw bait on his head. He lives. Yes. So he might just start to come past his head and he reacts to it. But you're going to bet.
Okay.
Those are we call bluebird sky baits. I mean, they are
Yeah.
even for bass fishing.
So now what is that saying where some guys say west is best? Why?
First day.
Ah,
First day.
okay. So that is what we were looking for.
First
That
day
first
west.
day of the west.
First day west can be done.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Can be done, especially if you don't have like a no. So what happens is again, where I have absolutely had some of the best days of my life is when I've been fishing. I'm literally fishing. The northeasterly is blowing. One time I was up at Tugela, and the northeasterly was blowing, and we were getting by. We knew a west was coming. We actually could see the clouds. Actually, if you learn to read the clouds, you know the west is actually close. It's coming. And at the end of the day, the west came through. It came through hard. Came through at probably 30 knots. And it was back in the day when we were driving on the beach. We actually ran, it was one-piece rods, had the rods on the van, on the roof.
Yeah.
And we were about to leave, and that wind just dropped off. But it was still blowing southwest. The west had come through with a big hump, for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour maybe.
Yeah.
And then it backed off to like 10 knots. We thought, what the hell? But yeah, anyway, we went in through, 3 of us, all tight, all dry.
Wow.
So that is when the west it can change the game for you. That whole morning now. So that first 6 hours of that west, those fish were out of control.
Right.
So the result is that first day of a west is better than the first day of an east.
Well, that's perfect way to explain the northeasterly, the southwesterly. Would there be any other winds we would get excited about or pay so much attention to?
If there's one wind that can change the game, okay, and that's that northwesterly. So it will
a northwesterly.
So
right.
Northwesterly, which is also known as offshore, it's also known as a berg wind.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the winter, when you get a berg wind, which is an offshore northwesterly.
What's going on there? How is that starting off and caused?
Okay, it's caused by the water the water temperature versus the land temperature.
Right.
Okay. So what happens is the water temperature is still warmer than what the land temperature at ground. So if you look up in the berg area now, that's why it's called the berg wind.
Yeah.
That's much colder. The ground is much colder than what the sea is. The sea will be 20 degrees, 21 degrees. The land can be 16 degrees, 15 degrees. And that causes effectively like a pressure system.
Right.
So it blows from the cold to the hot. The hot almost pulls that wind in. And that's what a berg wind is.
So
now all of a sudden you can be at August. Yeah, and you get this massive berg wind blow.
Yeah.
Suddenly you've got hot temperatures, in the middle of winter. Okay. Suddenly those fish think, well, what the hell's happening here? And we've caught sandies knockout in August.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
On this is on that berg wind.
On that northwesterly wind.
All right.
Yeah. And that northwesterly wind doesn't just when that happens, it's because remember in the winter you're gonna get offshores every morning.
Yes.
Because that's what's happening. You're having that situation where you've got very cool land, warmer water, and that causes an offshore wind. As soon as your predominant wind starts blowing, that backs off. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. And when you get that berg wind in winter, it's like you're getting a day or two of summer fishing in the middle of it.
Wow.
So that is a wind to watch out for. Go fishing when you see that berg wind. The rest of it is like you see, it's all a variable of those of your northeast and your south. So in other words, your northeast is 45 degrees. So if it's more towards the 90, that becomes an east-northeast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which is, we way prefer a proper northeast because again, you get better upwelling on a northeast straight off us. Whereas if it's an east-northeast, that's blue bottle time. It's not necessarily it's not doing what we really want it to do. And then so if you go back the other way, go 45, and then obviously, as you get to 0, that's straight north.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you get your northwesties, which are the offshores I'm talking about. And then you get your straight west. Now you very seldom get that straight west unless that west northwest, unless it's an offshore or a berg wind. So that doesn't play that much. And if you keep going around, you get your southwest, which I think is 270 degrees. And then once it goes past 270, it becomes a southeasterly. So your southeasterly is effectively coming after your west, which is when your barometer is the highest. So we don't like southeasterlies at all. Your straight east is not what we want either, because a straight east is just coming off a southeast, which is also not particularly good. And when it swings around and playing the proper northeast, that's really what we want. That offshore in the morning, very good. Yeah. But what we, as a fisherman, you want to know, northeast, cooling water down, giving it color, catch giant fish. Right. Southwest is those first day, you could still carry on doing the same thing and catch lots of other stuff. And you also catch a lot a lot of game fish will come and operate. Like if you're spooning and whatever, you'll catch your first of a west. You'll also catch your kingies and snook and stuff like that if it's not time.
For this winter, what sort of winds am I going to get excited about? Because, I mean, there's more of your edible species coming around. Like, I'm talking about your shad and, like I said, the garrick, the kingfish. What sort of wind am I looking for there? Well, surely I'm not looking for the northeasterly.
I think if
I'm looking for more cleaner water, aren't I?
and you're going to also you're going to probably fish more at night. Yeah, you're going to catch, unless you're fishing reefs.
Yeah.
Reefs can be as productive as nighttime fishing.
Yeah.
You're fishing on a reef because you're throwing at him. He's living. You're not trying to pull him to a bait.
Yeah.
You still are. But the point is, that's what it is. No, it's cut on that. Oh, no, it's like salmon fishing at night.
Yeah.
But you basically want to fish at night. So your carp, very prominent though in the winter. Your garrick, very prominent.
Okay. So before we round off, now, that was winds, right? We obviously, for the shows, we're going to talk about moon phases, which I'm sure goes in hand with tides. We're going to talk about the barometric pressure. These are all the elements that are involved. Wind does that link up with any of them, or does it link up with all of them? Do we take all into it?
They're actually all interlinked because effectively, when you look at the wind is what for example, your barometer is going to go up and down based on the wind because it's measuring pressure. Now, what's happening is what causes wind is it's moving from a high pressure to a low pressure or low pressure to a high pressure.
Yes.
And that's effectively, so that's what the barometer is picking up. So the result is the wind and the barometer is one and the same in a lot of ways because ultimately, for example, I can look at the barometer on my watch and see that the barometer is dropping. I know that it's blowing northeast.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not going to drop on anything else.
Right.
It'll drop on, when I say northeast, it could still be dropping on an east-northeast or even a west-northwest. It'll still be coming down. But if you look at and I see that it's blowing southwest, there's no way it's coming down, it's going up.
Yes.
Unless it's a real quick blow through and it's going to go back to the northeast.
Yeah.
So it's very interlinked.
Okay.
And your tides are obviously linked to the moon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, what happens is that gravitational pull can cause a lot of current. So if you've got wind added to that, again, it's interlinked. It's all interlinked. So.
Well, that's the beauty of what we're trying to put together over here. So this is the one where we talked about winds. Guys, next week, we're gonna move on to various topics. So this is why you want to stay tuned to the shows, is because, like Dave is saying, we are going to be talking about, this week is winds. We're going to get into the barometric pressure. Then we're going to get into the moon phases. Then we're going to get into the tides. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow us on whatever platform you are looking at us on. And make sure to rate us. Let us know exactly what you think of the show, what you think of the podcast. And more so, comment. Let us know your opinions on what we have been speaking about. Dave, this was absolutely fantastic. I mean, half an hour just on winds. I don't think we've ever touched on this before. I mean, you and I had our personal conversations on these. But apart from that, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
This is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green. Find more episodes at ecr.co.za under podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Let's fish for the future.